Southern and Eastern tradition. But the next speaker we have coming up, it's a real pleasure to introduce. Like I mentioned earlier, she's sort of the godmother of ERIE. She has a class here at school called Entheogenic Shamanism, which she's going to be teaching this upcoming semester, EWP 6537. If you haven't signed up for it already, there's a couple spots left. This is where ERIE sort of originated and was born through her class. So really excited to have her here. Just to give her a little brief bio, she holds a degree in clinical psychology and music therapy. She was actually one of the reasons I came to CIIS as well, because of her work with the Ikaros and healing. And so I heard about her work and I decided to come here and check it out. So she's been really influential for many of us ERIE members. Her work in Chile included the creation of psychoeducational programs, teaching, research, and psychotherapy. Susana's long-term passion for indigenous cultures and their relationship to the natural world, along with her interest on the therapeutic potentials of non-ordinary states of consciousness, led her to the Peruvian Amazon in '99. Since then, she has been studying vegetalismo and other indigenous shamanic practices from the Americas. Her doctoral research focused on the healing functions of the Ikaros during Ayahuasca ceremonies, which is an ongoing area of study for her. She's also really interested in the process of integration, which, as you mentioned, is an important aspect of ERIE's work. The process of integration of entheogenic experiences in ordinary life became one of her main interests while working as a therapist and clinical trainer at Takiwasi. Takiwasi is a Peruvian center for the treatment of drug addiction, which integrates indigenous and Western medicine. And there she's a clinical supervisor and researcher. Susana continues to focus on this theme in her private practice in Oakland. So without further ado, I would like to welcome and honor Susana Bustos up to the stage.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So, first, it's an honor to be back. I have been, some of you may know that I have been in the Peruvian Amazon working at Takiwasi for the past year and a half. And I came back about a couple of months ago. I'm originally Chilean, so my English is really going down. This is a disclaimer before I start. So if there is any question about how I express myself, please raise your hand and I will try to clarify it. I'm going to be. Well, I also want to say that I'm very proud of the ERIE team and what they have been doing over the years. And every time I got an email when I was down there about what you guys were doing, I was like, yes. So congratulations for everything you're doing. And the very good projects that I hope will come along, will manifest in the future. When I came in today, Steve Goodman said, "Oh, maybe I'm like the more different speaker than the four of us, And I'm like, maybe it's me, because I'm going to be talking today about plant diets in vegetalismo and the vegetalismo tradition. And plant diets in that tradition are usually done with plants that are not psychoactive, but the conditions that they are taken in make us enter into an expanded state of consciousness, and it's in a progressive way, working with the physical body and the energetic body, other levels I'm going to mention, in a way that we open up, or may open up, not only to deep healing possibilities, but also to live cosmologies that we read in the books, and we think are, maybe archetypal things. I think that we use that word a lot. Then when we face them experientially, wonders. So I'm going to be talking about that, and we'll give also some contrast between what are the suggest that we as Westerners live when we go deep into these practices that are foreign to us in the jungle. And what happens and what are the challenges for locals? So I better start because I have a lot to tell you. And let's see how we make the connections between this that I'm going to be talking about and Buddhism in the round table. So Takiwasi is a research and drug abuse rehabilitation center that combines traditional medicine and Western psychotherapy, and has a wealth of knowledge from their efforts to build bridges between traditional knowledge and Western approaches to the mind, body, spirit, nature complex. So needless to say, I didn't miss the opportunity to conduct research there, though I was hired to be the clinical supervisor and trainer for the new therapeutic team. The old people were all gone. They needed somebody who had been going down there for a while, and they know me for 14 years already. So I have a little child. I said, this is the time for me to go before she goes into primary school for a longer period of time. And it was a wonderful experience for her too. So I conducted some research there. One of them addresses the experience of the Icaros during ayahuasca ceremonies, which expands on my dissertation study, and the other focuses on an even less explored theme in traditional Amazonian medicine, which is the therapeutic effects of certain plants in the context of plant diet retreats in the jungle. So I followed during that time about 70 plant diet retreats, about 45 fully, and then the other ones were like 25 that were partial. That means 5 1 hour to an hour and a half times with the person who's dieting. Sometimes less, it depends also on where the person is at, in the mountain, in the chakra. And I will also tell you what, where do these diets take place. But I also, over the years of working, have been accompanying people, doing also plant diets in the jungle, in other parts of the jungle with other teachers, curanderos, integration sessions, and have my own personal experience with that practice. So I'm also draw examples from those other sources. So we all know how the demand for ayahuasca-based explorations, healing, and spirituality has increased exponentially in the past decade. There are now many different types of circles, individual practices, branches of Brazilian syncretic religions, therapeutic explorations, and research occurring all over the world, underground, and also kind of underground. Legal cases abound. And Peru, where ayahuasca was declared a cultural patrimony, doesn't escape from new synthesis, and the ayahuasca boom has had a profound impact on the ever-changing traditional ways held in the Amazon area. I hope we can discuss that more in the roundtable after Steve Bayer's presentation. It's very interesting, very important, and very has also an alarming aspect that I would like to bring in from the perspective of being in the South. What's interesting is that from a focus upon the substance, people who are seeking ayahuasca have been progressively drawn to explore the potentials of what we call the 3 pillars of the vegetalismo medicinal system, which is the ayahuasca intake ceremonially, the purging, and also the plant diets. So we're talking about 3 pillars of this medical system. In the West, we know much more about the ayahuasca, which is, again, the focus on the substance. So there is also looking to know more how this medical system works, as well as to inquire about the cosmological whereabouts of the system. So at Takiwasi alone, we have about 150 people who go through plant diet retreats, besides the people, the clients that are interned. People coming to plant diet retreats come from all over the world, but particularly from Latin American countries and Europe. Every center I know of in and around Tarapoto, Iquitos, and Pucallpa offers plant diet retreats, and there are people dieting in the north as well, exploring new ways of doing it here. But what are these plant diet retreats? They are retreats in the jungle, there you call them el monte. Monte is like the mountain, the hill. With a variable duration of about a week to up to 6 months or more, in isolation, with ritualized ingestion of plant concoctions or frescos. Frescos are soaked plants or plain and diluted plant juices. You take them under a strict dietary regimen and norms for physical and energetic protection during and after the diet. Plant diet retreats are the main vehicle of energetic preparation and access to knowledge for the shaman and the apprentice. The healer that doesn't diet periodically won't be able to cure or won't be able to manage the energies properly. His body won't be strong enough to sustain the healing process of a client, nor the spiritual attacks of enemies. The progressive communion with the spirit of the plant dieted opens up the gates for self-reflection, purgation, and healing, as well as the gates to the spiritual realms, and can bring particular knowledge associated to the use of the plant for healing purposes, as well as the tune or ícaro to convey her presence when required. I'm going to give a lot of examples afterwards. I'm just like giving you guys an overall general idea of what these plant diet retreats are. So clients with health conditions also undergo plant diets with certain food and energetic restrictions. And some of them are prescribed strict plant diet retreats. So we have different levels of plant diets. Not everybody goes to a plant diet retreat in the jungle. You might take the plants also in your house, and then you may eat a little different, but you keep eating normal. Actually, my maestro says that there are 3 levels of plant diet, so others say that there are more, and then there are others who say there are just 2, the shamanic plant diet retreats and the others for clients. So self-reflection and opening the sensitivity towards the spirit world are also sought in plant diet retreats. The plants are prescribed depending upon the characteristics of the plants themselves and the physical, mental, and spiritual condition of the client. Though traditional curanderos tend not to make strong distinctions between the state of the body and that of the mind. So here Takiwasi has developed over 20 years like this knowledge about psychoemotional effects of these plants, which is fabulous. The effects on therapeutic processes, like Western therapeutic processes, when you combine that with plant diet retreats, is just amazing. And I will show you some examples later as well. I'm gonna just give you some pictures so that you have an idea about the context. I don't know why I don't have a... Okay, I'm gonna just show it as it is. Can someone... Oh, here. I don't know why I cannot see the bottom, but I'm going to show you these pictures. This is Takiwasi. This is in Tarapoto, Peruvian Amazon, closer to the border with Ecuador. This is Ermitaño. I wanted to put a picture of him because he has been there since I started going to Takiwasi 14 years ago. And he's an icon. He works the land there, and he's like a plant spirit. This is the main building, and this is part of the land that they have down close to the city. That's the lab, that structure that you see there. That's the botanical garden. And those are that's a celebration of somebody who was finishing the 9 months treatment, and also a birthday. That's the therapeutic team. At the time I was there, now some people are gone. That's Jacques Mabi, probably you have seen him before in the center. I always say this is the chronically overworked team. And this is like the path that you have to take in order to go to the chakra in the mountain. So you have to cross a river to accompany the people who already are up there 3 times per week. You cross the river, see beautiful things in the path. And there is a gruta for the Virgin. Probably have heard of this syncretism between Christianism and vegetalismo. Christianism and indigenous remnants form the synthesis of vegetalism. And there are also other influences, but there is a Virgin Mary here that people pray to. This is the maloca for Ayahuasca ceremonies in the chakra. There is another one also down there. And this is the river where we all we bathe before Ayahuasca ceremonies, and also before going and accompanying somebody who is in diet. You need to really take care of your energetic influence on the people. And then this is the Casa del Guardián, where the people who give the plants are stay. This is a tambo for diet. This is how they look. It's pretty open to the elements, as you can see. And there are just basic things inside, including that bucket for the sacred vomit. And that's me. And that's it. I'm going to leave it there and just continue. Here's a summary of the general characteristics of a plant diet process. First, the person stays in isolation in a small open structure in the jungle wilderness for a week, 2 months, sometimes after having purged and or taking ayahuasca ritual. The person changes to a slim nutritional diet, ingesting only plain rice, green or boiled green plantain once or twice per day, though eventually the client fasts. Some maestros allow rice to be replaced by oatmeal. Chonta is eaten as well, and in longer diets where nutritional states may get severely compromised, certain fish such as pequichico or gallina de chacra, free-range hen grown in the forest, are also allowed as protein sources. No salt, spices, oils, sugars of any sort are used. The dose and frequency of plant blue ingestion depends on the plant and the condition of the person, as well as on the curandero. Some plants with strong effects on the physical body, such as chiricsanango or uchusanango, are usually taken once every other day or less. Others with lesser effects build up by drinking them 3 times per day. Some plant diets include periodic ceremonial work with ayahuasca, others don't. In general, the person has to avoid excessive physical activity, exposure to sun, fire, heat, cold, rain, certain scents, contact with other people, particularly sick people, mooning women, and persons who have recently had sexual contact. Those are energetic management precautions that also people who accompany them in the diets have to just really engage with. Sexual contact and autoerotism are prohibited. We can discuss this later. Usually, only the maestro and another support person meeting these energetic cautions visit the person during the retreat. So now, what are the general physical effects? The diet, low in sodium, proteins, and calories, and rich in potassium, modifies the metabolism and the mechanisms of electrolytic tissular exchanges, producing perceptible physiological alterations. Initially, the excretion functions, that diuresis and sweating rise, but later they stabilize. Low sodium provokes an initial sensation of lack of energy due to the diet's impact on blood pressure that levels out later. Blood tests conducted at Takiwasi demonstrate normal values of glucose, cholesterol, and light leukocytosis immediately after the diet. There could be constipation due to lack of fiber and physical exercise. With certain plants, there is sometimes generalized or localized pain. The person does not feel well. There could be vomit, irritability, dizziness, or diarrhea, which are considered manifestations of a general transitory depuration. There is also an alteration of sleep patterns and frequently insomnia. There's also a sensation of lightness as the diet progresses, integration to nature, and definitely sensory amplification. I'm gonna talk about the general psychoemotional effects when I start talking about the challenges for the people. So I'm gonna skip that because I think that the juicy thing is also in the examples. I talked about the physical, general physical characteristics of the plant diets. There are also like different effects depending on the type of plant that is dieted. So I'm going to give a couple of examples from my study of 4 of the dozen plants more frequently used at Takiwasi in plant diet processes. Ahosacha, or garlic of the mountain, is considered a masculine solar plant, and it's used traditionally for rheumatism and to strengthen the immunological system. At Takiwasi, it is used in people who need to strengthen masculine properties, self-esteem, self-assertion within group context, willpower, decision-making processes, planning for the future, mental clarity. The Ushpawasha Sanango, on the other hand, is a water plant, feminine, and also used for rheumatism, but it is also called the memory of the heart. It has a strong smell and tastes of decomposed food. It's very strong. So you can see, I think that's a very, we have to go through. Right? It is used in order to get the memory of the heart back. It is used in people to experientially remember and metabolize early and middle childhood experiences. We have also seen that people bring back with the use of this plant, some people, not everybody, memories in the womb, like womb experiences, very deeply, that are not initially understood as such, but then with the processing, there is clearly a relationship with their own birth process. It also promotes emotional catharsis and connect with one's emotions. I'm going to give an example of the latter plant in order to give an idea of the therapeutic possibilities of these plants. So this is client A, European, in his early 40s, addicted to cocaine and alcohol. This was his 4th treatment. So the 3 other treatments. Not that Takiwasi failed. He was trying the 4th time. His first 3 months of treatment focused on re-experiencing the pain, fear, and shame of having an unpredictable alcoholic father when he was a child. He tended to victimize a lot about what happened to him. And his intention for his first diet was to embrace his wounded inner child. During my visits to the chakra to see him, I was surprised by his literally transfigured face. He looked like a child. His skin looked clean, the eyes shone, the facial features were relaxed. He had strong dreams and memories of having fun with his parents on vacation times, being taken care of, enjoying the outdoors with them. It was totally unusual material in therapy. This reframing of his childhood at the experiential level took the entire diet. So more memories started coming to him. And he was able to enjoy himself deeply. So you could see a person who was like normally really like introverted and kind of like grumpy, like being joyful and really expressing that in his body and the way that he communicated. Very interesting. He was indeed loved as a child, and he had forgotten it. Towards the end of the diet, he felt a deep reconciliation with his past and a reverent gratitude to life, which was later processed and integrated in therapy. This is important, as the inner changes have to be tested and implemented in daily life in order to persist. After a period, what we call the period, Stan Grof coined this term, the grace period. So after the grace period, where you're still like functioning in this kind of integrative mode of consciousness, and that lasts for different periods of time in different people, you start going back to the same habits again. So it's very important to do therapeutic works, particularly if you're using these plants, and also ayahuasca and also other entheogens for therapeutic and healing purposes. Okay?
Can you say the name of the plant again, slowly?
The last example, Ushpawasha sanango.
Ushpawasha?
Ushpawasha, USHPA, WASHA, sanango, del monte, from the monte. So traditionally, the plant diet is cut ritually by blowing smoke into energetic parts of the body and a pinch of salt, which is later ingested. There are variations to this ritual as well, and it is believed that in order for the plants to get properly installed into the energetic body of the client, post-diet food and energetic restrictions have to be strictly followed. Okay, it's not just like I go through the plant diet and that's it. I prepare for the diet, I do the diet, and then you have to continue taking some measures for the energetic installation of the body in the energetic body. Therefore, some curanderos handle this post-diet time even with more care than the diet process itself. The post-diet period varies depending on the curandero, plant's dieted, and the length of the plant diet retreat. May go from 2 weeks to a year. So when the diet or post-diet restrictions are not followed, the consequences express themselves in a range of symptoms. I give you later a couple of other examples, but this is called cruzar la dieta, or to twist the dieta. The severity of the symptoms depends on the plants ingested and of the type of transgression, which may be even involuntary, and need immediate energetic correction. The symptoms range from exacerbation of the personality trait that was the focus of the diet, feeling sick, diarrhea, vomits, heat rushes, migraines, nervousness, insomnia, irritability, nightmares, irritability, dermatological conditions, and even confusional states and paranoid ideation. So, see if I can show you this right now. If I can. Let me see. This is the Camaranaco tree that's also used for plant diets. This is an apprentice harvesting the roots of the Camaranaco and cooking. This is the mucura, that's another plant that is prepared as a fresco. This is the way of preparing it. So also other tambos for diet. And this is, for example, an example of symptoms if that emerge when you don't take care of the diet. So this is a person who was dieting with somebody in Chasuda, and there was a person, when I was there was a researcher from France conducting research on diet as well. And she took these pictures and gave them to me, which I'm very appreciative of. And this is a person who dieted Ayahuasca, a woman, a European woman. And Ayahuasca is a solar plant, right? You have to be very careful in post-diet with exposure to sun, so to elevate the heat of the body. And she had exposure to sun for about an hour, and these are the consequences. So it's also interesting that there are like these marks here in the legs. There is very little known, like scientifically, about why and how you have to take care of these things. What we know is what curanderos say: take care in this way and this way and this way, right? There are certain plants that we know. Okay, Camalonga, has certain amounts of strychnine, you say. So you have to be very careful with sugars because that potentializes the effects, and could poison you. But there are many things that we don't know, and it's very challenging when you're a Westerner going down there to just understand why. If you put such an effort through the plant diet, you still have to, keep restricting yourself for the following month. So, Takiwasi is pretty strict, but we also receive people from different centers with a lot of symptoms that, with dietas cruzadas, that's called, to just try to put them back. Oh no. So what are the challenges for Westerners? I have seen in total about 100 cases, and then followed the whole diet, so half part of the diets, and also have followed some locals, but much less about a dozen cases. So I'm going to talk about 4 if I can, because I only have 10 more minutes. So
Questions and answers too.
questions and answers.
We'll have 15 of question and answer.
Okay. So I have 4. There are many more, but one is the meeting of expectations. Like, what do we expect when we go down there, and what do we get? Right? The other one is the fear of the wild, and what happens when we just go there and have our Indiana Jones expectations and stuff like that, and then we meet the challenges of being in the jungle. It's not easy. Then what happens with the dream world when it opens up for locals and Westerners? And then what happens when there are spiritual gates that open, and we also have spiritual encounters. Okay. So in my experience, the majority of the people attending plant diet retreats come with physical, psychoemotional, or existential concerns. They are looking for an alternative to heal after trying Western method with none or partial results. Many come with little knowledge of what they are embarking on, bring big expectations, and faith in the work. People become open and vulnerable because of this, or scared and distrustful, don't understand, and therefore don't strictly follow the restrictions of the diet, exposing themselves to the cruzaderas that I was talking about. For example, many things I have seen, like they hide cell phones and cameras. They are not supposed to bring them up to the diet, right? Cigarettes and cereal bars. It is crucial to initiate personal contact, give information, reframe the expectations before starting with the process. In addition, there is also no informed support system waiting for them when they return home. So the follow-up is important, but sometimes it's not possible. So just like get people very open, coming back, not knowing what's happening with them, and not having a good support system. Many locals still frame their health conditions that cannot be addressed by Western medicine as a result of daño or spiritual harm. One of the several cases I have witnessed was a couple with a 2-year-old daughter riding in the same colectivo as myself, the same taxi, the cab, to see Don Guillermo, an experienced dietero, in Chasuta. They told me the wife had been in the hospital for 4 months. The doctors were unable to stop her intestinal hemorrhage. She was pale, weak, and felt evidently awful. And it was a pity to see her, actually. They had spent almost all their money, and supported by their families, they decided to consult with Don Guillermo, known by his doctoring skills. We arrived at Don Guillermo's together. He welcomed us, let me sit, and immediately attended the couple in semi-privacy. He listened to them, reassured the couple he could heal the wife, yet they needed to spend a month in plant diet retreat. So the husband had to rent a donkey to bring up a sack of potatoes, a sack of rice, bedding, and the wife and the child, the donkey. He called Don Guillermo sweetly and highly respectfully Tata or Tatita, Grandpa. Not Taita. Taita is like more from the north. This is Tata. Don Guillermo asked his wife to kill a hen and prepare a soup for them. I saw how the overall tension dissipated and the situation was left with trust in the hands of the doctor. I later accompanied them to the chakra. The woman was sung over for about 20 minutes to bring back her soul, blown smoke onto, given a massage in part of her body, and given a fresco of plants to drink. She was exhausted. Don Guillermo was preparing to drink ayahuasca that same night to receive instructions on her situation and how to proceed. Don Guillermo's wife was taking care of the child and preparing the hut where the husband of the client and the child were going to stay for him. So this example shows the level of surrender. You know, locals also demonstrating conditions as desperate as this one. Main differences with Westerners were they know, or significant others know, the doctor's successes and failures. So they know who you are going to. They are received as family members in the doctor's home. You don't go to a hospital, you go to the doctor's home. They accept being sheltered. There is deep respect for the doctor and trust in the process. There is a common understanding of the sickness as a spiritual issue, and a group of support when they come back. This paradigmatic and cultural alignment predisposes success. I'm gonna go a little quicker here, and I'm gonna just skip some things and go into the fear of the wild. It's also a challenge for Westerners. No matter how accustomed Westerners are to the wild, getting used to the jungle and a plant-like retreat takes several days. There is an intensified alertness that is supported by a progressive amplification of sensory awareness to noises, scents, colors, the sensation of progressive physical weakness, and nighttime insomnia. Imagination raises, people tend to get scared at nighttime, feel isolated, plan mentally what to do and how to get help if attacked by a poisonous spider or snake, or by an animal. These fears tend to subside later, but at the beginning, it's most of the people go through that, okay? And then also this integration into the natural conditions also take place. For my local informants used to the jungle, this is not an issue. Usually they go equipped with a machete, just in case. And fears come mainly at nighttime and are related to the possible spiritual attacks that are stronger at nighttime. So it's not about the physical conditions, but it's about what is unseen. And or seductions to break the diet in their dreams. So I will show 2 examples of the fear of the wild in Westerners. Maybe one. So this is a European woman in her early 60s, reowning her feminine power after years of struggling with the psychoemotional consequences of a dysfunctional marriage. Very dysfunctional, but I won't enter into details. She died of coca, the coca plant, the planta maestra. There was strong rain during the diet. She was, in one night, she was very aware that the jaguar was under her bed. She could smell the scent of the jaguar. She could hear him licking himself. She was numb, frozen with fear. She could hear the jaguar yawning and stretching because her bed moved. She was totally awake. She was also very afraid of mudslides and had visions of her bamboo sliding onto the tree. She was not moving, so terrified. We're talking about like an experienced therapist here. At some point she moved, put herself in a vulnerable position so that if the jaguar jumped on her, she would just like, go right away. And then she, for some reason, she fell asleep. And she said that in her entire life, she had not connected with her will to live. And in that moment, she just tapped into this fear and the assertion of saying, I want to live. That was addressing a deep depressive state in her that she had been carrying for a long time. So this is one example that, you know, we can go into like, is this real or not real later, right? But it's associated with the fear of the wild. There are other people, I have another example where the fears are very real, and some of them just quit in the middle of the diet because it's too much. What happens also in plant diet retreats is that we progressively enter into a dreamlike state. And that dreamlike state is kind of a permeable state where I call it a transparency state, where you feel the lightness in your body, and at the same time there is like a continuum between what you're living inside and what is happening outside. So you may get incredible insights from a butterfly, from the inner process from a butterfly, like around your toes, right? Or from a snake coming and staying with you for a while there. And right away, when you get just absorbed into that and get messages about this, then the dream world is exacerbated. And they are very vivid images, as if real. Right? You feel that you may feel as if you were there in that place, really. Many people enter this permeable state smoothly as it evolves progressively. The typical difficulties are encountered in people with strong rational defenses, low self-esteem, and in constant battle with themselves, physically or emotionally charged. This is what I have been seeing in all these cases. Locals expect this state to occur as part of the connection with the spirit world and the teachings and our alert to dreams. Though it's interesting to note that locals tend to interpret dreams literally, and that dreams and dreamlike states insights tend to address concrete problems. For example, an apprentice doing a month-long diet told me he had a sore throat for days. He asked the plant, and that night he had a dream that informed him he had to wear socks at nighttime. He followed the indications, and the sore throat disappeared. An experienced apprentice doing a 3-month diet told me that after 2 successful months of diet, he took a break from isolation in his tango and met with his maestro in the main tango of the chakra. At some point, he was left alone and saw a salt container on the table. Temptation, seduction, right? He couldn't resist it. So he said, no one is going to see me, and went to take a pinch of salt. When he was about to grab the salt, he felt being tapped in his hand, and a voice saying, don't you dare break your diet. He immediately understood it was his grandfather, a renowned curandero, taking care of him. It's very direct, it's very different, the symbolic interpretations that Westerners give to their dreams and their dreamlike states to the direct messages that locals get to resolve complete situations. This is very particular too. So I know I don't have more time. I just wanted to talk about the spiritual encounters and what and how different it is also for us when we just get in touch with a being that we don't know and start stalking. And then what happens to locals. Maybe it will emerge during the questions or in the round table, and I hope we can also make connections between these paradigmatic differences and Tibetan Buddhism.
If anyone has any questions, raise your hand and I'll come with a microphone. And I just have one quick question. I have a friend of mine that is doing a diet as well, and she finds that she is often seduced in her dreams. How does she go about, because it seems like in a dream world, unless you're lucid, you're kind of at you're at the whim of what the dreams do. And so she finds herself eating something chocolate or something salty in her dreams, and knowing that it's not a diet food, but not being able to figure out the dream state. So what types of things can she do to help achieve a better diet within your dream state as well, and not be out of these temptations?
Well, there are. Is she doing it for apprenticing? She's doing it for different, for her health. Well, she can do dream interpretation work, yeah, and see how is it speaking to herself, that material. When you're in plant diet in the jungle, and you go to accompany somebody as a therapist, right? Normally you don't work therapeutically. You accompany people. People are in integrative mode of consciousness. You just say a couple of things and suggest, and there are deep insights happening right away. If she's doing a shamanic training, it's different. Yeah. So, yeah.
I'm just wondering, you spoke about plant diets. What about just with the ritual ceremonial use of ayahuasca? What sort of diet do they use at Takiwasi? Just for the ayahuasca itself.
Food diet to
Yeah.
prepare yourself.
Yes.
Well, it's not much. Basically, you just don't eat lunch that day, and then you have a plant bath before the ceremony starts.
Okay.
And then that day you don't consume pork and spices and the typical things that you hear about, but it's just that day. It's very important also to consider that in the preparation of at least at Takiwasi for a ceremony, usually you purge the day before. There's ceremonial purging.
With some.
There are different plants. There are at least a dozen methods and maybe 7 to 8 plants that are used there more frequently.
Hi, Susana. So doing some integration work here in the West, with people having visionary experiences or dreams, you know, it's often dangerous when people take their dreams and visions literally.
Right.
You know, we want to look at them through as many perspectives as possible. So as Westerners down there that are maybe dreaming in, you know, with their Western psyche, can you see, are there signs at some point when they've entered the cosmology of the people who they're dieting with, and then you can see things through a different light?
There are so many possibilities. You see people interpreting things literally also that are Westerners. I don't want to. I don't want to go like off focus. Can you repeat the last thing, because I just have many things in my mind.
Well, yeah, I guess because you talked about some of the hazards or differences of Westerners being down there, and so yeah, I guess just when, you know, their psyche that they're bringing enters into the cosmology of the people that they're dieting with, and I don't know how to navigate that.
Well, when that happens, you know, one thing I didn't talk about is like once you have accompanied many cases, you can, and done also your work, you can also distinguish as somebody who is accompanying somebody else in a plant diet retreat, what are plant dreams and what are dreams that come with personal content that needs to be processed. Plant dreams are normally very awkward for the person. They bring knowledge that's totally out of the range of explanations and things that are familiar for the person. And terms and rituals and showing and magnifying like natural elements in ways that you normally wouldn't know. Right? So for Westerners going at Takiwasi, when those type of things come, we normally like accompany them through that and frame them as plant dreams. What do you do with that? If you're in apprenticing or training for something, is different than if you're going there for healing purposes. This is what I can say in general. Any other question? Yeah.
All right. First of all, thank you. Thank you for speaking and being here. I'm curious about if someone who is dieting plants is having some sort of a spiritual attack. Is it will the curandero or the maestro come in to assist, or is it up to the person who's dieting to take care, or is it some sort of care?
Well, traditionally, when you're dieting with a curandero, you're under the energetic umbrella of the curandero. So that's why it's very important to follow the restrictions and the ways of the curandero when you engage in a diet, right? Like, because that keeps you under the umbrella. If you go away from that, then you just like open up other possibilities. So yes, you can like talk about these things to the curandero when he comes to see you. But then there are other things that are tests, right? That there are traditional tests in the path, such as being tempted to, you know, like they say, for example, if you're seeing needles and things that are metal and then cut, right, and you're offered that, don't accept them, right? You're being offered things in your dream and your dream-like states that may take you into the dark side of the teachings instead of the light side of the teachings. So those things are important to talk to the curandero, but also to know in advance. Certain things are important to know in advance so that we know what to do when we're in front of those things. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yes.
I think you mentioned that you just returned recently, and I'd like to know what it's like for you personally to come back to this dense urban environment and how you manage to live in two worlds.
Thank you for asking that. Well, This is the second time that I spend so much time down there, though every year we go with my husband and work there, bring people down. So I knew what we were going to face when we came back. Maybe the most challenging thing is we're very open energetically. At the beginning, the first month is the most difficult one. It was the most difficult one this time. And it felt like everything was like stuck full of things. Like everything is full of things. And people are full of experiences, full of things. So the possibility of living spontaneously in the present moment, just and in simplicity, just really is much more difficult. And it's very, it's like, oh, everybody here has to purge. And this is how I experienced that this time. Right? And but then like slowly you can like tune in back into this, and also I think we're called, and we don't know if we're going to stay here or not, to live in simplicity. Yeah. So if we stay here, we definitely will simplify our lives.
Thank you very much, Susana.